Hi, it's Savannah Ogwin from Savannah Land 2. Today I'm on the Reverse Confetti blog as part of the special feature called Confetti Camera. The DT's assignment this time is to share our favorite tip or trick. Now if you know me, I absolutely love so much. So picking just one trick was difficult. I love to mask my stamps to create custom sentiments. I love cutting stamps apart for more versatility and to combine with other stamps. It's kind of like masking, but the stamps are apart. I love using my dies. I just love everything about crafting. Now there is one technique that I love the most, and it started actually from the beginning of my crafting. I love fussy cutting, which is also related to paper piecing. Now there are several reverse confetti stamp images that I fussy cut out and received so many questions on how I do it. Now this is a really simple technique and you're going to need a couple of supplies. You will need fine detailed scissors. Now I love my Cutter B scissors. They're very thin and easy to get right into small areas. But you can also use Cricut or Tim Holtz scissors. Ink. I'm going to be using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. You'll need some paper, and I'm going to use just regular cardstock, metallic paper. You can use any type of paper. Pattern paper is good, so choose whatever's best for you and for your project. And you will need your reverse confetti stamps. Now the images that you want to fussy cut are blocked letters or images, such as the word Mary and the word count. Another image that's great is this cut from Be a Barista, because this image can be stamped in several pieces and cut from various papers and pattern piece back together. So to start, we want to pick our papers and then our stamps. So for our video, I already showed you, I'm going to be fussy cutting the word Mary. I'm going to show you how to cut a special letter from count, and then I will also be cutting out this cup. And I've actually picked out regular cardstock, metallic paper, and then some cork and pattern paper as well. Next you need to stamp or emboss. So be sure to stamp your images or words on several coordinating pieces of paper if you're paper piecing it together, and emboss on papers that are shiny or textured. Now we can fussy cut. So let's start with this image first. The coffee cup is super easy to fussy cut. You just decide what the base will be and cut that out first. Now sometimes I leave a very small space between my image and the cut. It's about 1/8 of an inch. And sometimes then I cut right on the line. It all depends on personal preference and how you want your creation to look. Both ways are fine. And for this, I think I'm going to just cut right next to that line. Sometimes I actually cut it out and then recut it because I don't like the space. So it's easier to cut out more than, what's the saying? How's the saying go? It's easier to take away than to add on. There it is. So sometimes I cut and leave a space, and then I can take away that 1/8 of an inch if I don't like it. Which I think is what I'm going to do here. Because I already started, and I'm not sure you can see this, but I left a space around here, around this handle, and I don't really like it. So I'm going to cut that out again. Sometimes it's hard to cut around the pieces that you've already cut out too, because it's such a small amount that you're cutting, but it's totally worth it. Now to cut out this handle, what I'm going to do is cut right on this line, cut up to the top, and then I'm going to cut around the handle center. You could leave it in, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's easier to attach this handle back down here at the bottom. So now I've cut out the base. Next, you want to cut your smaller pieces of your design. So for this, you've got a stripe in the center, and I've cut, I've already stamped that design on this striped piece of paper. And I actually embossed a small little heart using clear iridescent embossing powder by Imagine Crafts. And I'm going to be fussy cutting that out too, because you can cut solid images as well. So all you're going to do is just cut right on the line. Now my tip for when you're cutting images, center pieces of the image, like this is a center piece, you want to cut right on the line. Or that's what I like to do. I mean, I guess you could cut around and leave a space, but I like to cut right on the line. And I have to say that sometimes pieces are really hard. Like I've cut out little hands and little eyebrows on some of my images. Whew, it is difficult, but the end result is so worth it. I love it. So now that we've cut this out, we're just going to attach it using some glue. I just love this cork cup. How cute is that? And we lay it right down into the cup. And there we've fussy cut and paper pieced. Now the last piece that I'm going to do is this little heart. And when you're cutting around solid images like this, all you're going to do is cut around the edge. And sometimes I do leave space on this as well. And then I distress the edge with a very, very light ink so that it stands out. And I'll show you how I do that. Just take a very light color and it makes your heart stand out just a tad bit. You might not be able to see it, but it really shows up on your image. And then we will just color or glue him down as well. And there you have it. A fussy cut and paper pieced image. Now for the letters, there's a couple of things that we can do. Some letters are easier to cut out than others. Just like this M, for example, it's very straight. Each cut can be done without moving the paper, and you just cut in and out, and it's actually so easy I can do it while I'm talking to you. I'm almost finished actually. So we just remove this little piece, and then we have one last piece to do. Now this is super simple. We've cut out our M. Now there are others that are a bit more difficult. And it requires a bit more attention, and actually I find that the harder letters give me a bit more versatility for my cards because I can leave the inside pieces inside. So for example, this letter R is super difficult because it has this little itty bitty space on the inside. There are other letters like A's, O's, B's. They all have this center piece, and you can leave it in or you can leave it out, and that's where the versatility comes in. Now if I were to cut it out, I would take into consideration the thickness of my paper and how easy it is to cut around. Now for the thickness, the thicker or heavier cardstock causes problems with getting a good solid image cut. Metallic paper is super difficult to cut around those images, so I don't like to do it. I like to leave those in. And then that actually, watch this, when you leave it in, it actually causes this letter to become extremely easy to cut out. So you can make hard letters easy to cut out just by leaving the centerpiece in. So what I would do is just cut around. and then cut this bottom. 1, 2, 3. And this hard letter has now been fussy cut easily. But for a piece of paper like this is a very thin cardstock, I would cut it out. And normally what I do is I cut from one end over so that I always have a larger piece to hold on to. But because I'm just showing you this little R, I would cut a little bit around it, and then I would cut a bottom off, and then I would go right into the letter. So I'm going to follow this line right up to the top, just like I did for this where I cut the handle at the bottom here. I cut right into that letter, and it might be noticeable a little bit, but not by much. And then I'm just going to cut around the center, and he falls out. And now I can finish by cutting the rest of my letter out. Now this does take a little bit more time, but again, the end result is totally worth it. And there is the letter R, cut with the center piece out. Now I have to tell you that the difficulty in cutting around the curves and inside pieces of your word really come with trial and error. Now I only realized how to do this after cutting several different letters, and I don't really mind doing that. It's part of the process, but I will show you another way to cut like an O. Now for this example, this is the word count from Count Your Blessings stamp set, and it actually is super easy to fussy cut because after trial and error I found out that you don't need a craft knife to cut around the center. You can most definitely do that, but what I do is I just cut diagonally right into the center. I cut up to the top, and then I take it and I cut each piece out. So I'll have a little piece on this side that falls out. Not sure if you can see that. And now I will manipulate my paper to cut around the other side. And sometimes my scissors get stuck, so I cut down from the bottom. Just trial and error. And there is my center piece. Now if you're really worried that your line is missing, just take a Sharpie marker and fill in your line again. Really, it's super simple and an easy little touch to your creations. And then I would just cut around the edge. Now I mentioned earlier that this cut will be seen a little bit, but it's much easier to hide and cover up instead of lines and pieces that are missing when you're using a craft knife. And that's it. That's really all you have to do for your cut images. Now I hope that you have learned a little bit about how to fussy cut and paper piece images and sentiments. I really hope that you will try fussy cutting on your next project. Please leave a comment below and share a link to one of your creations that uses this technique of fussy cutting or paper piecing. I'd love to check it out. Thanks so much for watching.